Candidates Forum. My name is Kathy Fink, and I'm the CEO of the Santa Fe Springs Chamber, and I want to welcome you to Santa Fe Springs. And I want to thank the city for allowing us to use this lovely facility, and hopefully this will be a very informative and give you some insight of the candidates that are running. I want to express my appreciation to the Norwalk Whittier Chamber of Commerce for partnering, and thank the Southern California Gas Company for sponsoring the coffee and Danish this morning. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to call up Karen Spilsbury from Norwalk, and she will lead you with the flag salute.
You would all stand, please. Face the flag, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And if I could introduce Carol Crosby from the Whittier Chamber of Commerce, who's already read it. Come on. Well, again, on behalf of the Santa Fe Springs and Norwalk and Whittier Chambers, thank you so much for being here today. I'd like to just do a quick introduction of our elected officials, our city council representatives. If you are here, please stand and raise your hand. We have two right there. And also our board members from all of our chambers. So if you are a board member of Whittier, Santa Fe Springs, or Norwalk Chambers, please stand up and be recognized. So thank you so much. And it's my pleasure at this time to call up our moderator. This is Patty Coates. She is the president of the Santa Fe Springs Chamber. Nope, no more? Immediate past president. I knew she was at one time. And she has much experience in doing this, and we appreciate you being here today. So you can take it.
All right, good morning, everyone. Okay, so again, welcome to the 57th Assembly District Candidate Forum. While the participating chambers do not endorse candidates, we do provide information to our members and the community so they can make their own informed decisions during voting time. This morning we are pleased to start the forum with 6 of the 8 registered candidates, and you can see who they are up there with their placards. I also want to thank Ross Guile up here in front from DigiCal for filming this morning's event. And the footage will be available on all chambers' websites later on this week. The seating order of the candidates was determined earlier, and we will rotate speakers at the start of each question. Members of the audience will have an opportunity to ask questions by writing them on index cards. We'll pass those out in a little bit, and they are located actually over there. Carol's going to pass those out. The format for the candidate forum will be as follows. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and during that statement, if you could provide your 3 top priorities for running for this office, we'd appreciate it. Then candidates will be asked 3 RCA, which is the Regional Chamber Alliance, generated questions, and will be given 2 minutes to answer those questions. Candidates will then be asked 2 audience-generated questions, and you'll have 1 minute to respond to those. Finally, each candidate will be given 1 minute for any closing statements they wish to make. As the candidates are speaking, a yellow card will be held up at the 30 seconds remaining, and a red card will be displayed when the time is up. We kindly ask all the candidates to adhere to the time allotted, as we are on a very tight schedule. We also want them to be respectful when it is someone else's turn. As a reminder to all, this is a forum where candidates have been invited to provide information to our residents and businesses. This is not a debate, and there will not be an opportunity for rebuttals. Shall we begin? All right, so we're going to start down on the end over there and then pass up the microphone, please, to the next candidate for them to answer the same question. But if you would go ahead and at least start with your opening and include those 3 priorities.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. My name is Primo Castro, Assembly candidate here in the 57th, and priorities are healthcare, public safety, and education as well. So, I live in the city of La Habra Heights, and one of the things that I've seen over the years is that Sacramento is a bit dysfunctional. The current staffer in the legislature, I realized there's a lot of things that we need to go ahead and fix. And unfortunately, there's a lot of resources that really don't make it here to our 57th Assembly District also. But we are dealing with a number of issues, high priority issues, not just for the business community, but also that impact the way that we live down here, housing, homelessness. But obviously we want to make sure that we create the jobs, sustainable jobs that will go ahead and make people live and thrive in our communities locally here. So I want to make sure that we focus on what's really needed for the chambers, right? After all, the chambers are the bread and butter of our local communities because they provide lots of important information, but also countless jobs out there for everybody. The chambers are the ones that really make the businesses, the corporations, work with one another. And this is something that we really need to focus on because I've seen how Sacramento has been taking, things, left and right. Obviously, we want to go ahead and provide incentives. We want to go ahead and provide things that are, that allow for businesses to come into our community and provide those much needed jobs, especially in a new era where we're looking at green technology, but also better paying jobs locally. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Sylvia Rubio. I've been in this district already for over 25 years. My son was actually born in Whittier. I live in Whittier. My father retired from the City of Industry after about 40 years. A lot of the community service work that I do has been in the Santa Fe Springs area here locally, Norwalk, and most of it has been in the northern part of the district, which is in the San Gabriel Valley. So I've been up and down this district. I've seen the need. That is especially the growing need with the assistance to the homelessness crisis. I currently work as a field representative and have done so for the past decade. So my job as it consists now is going to residents, to businesses, trying to see the need that they have, bring it back to the council, to the city manager's office, making sure that those needs are met, that we try to find resources. The cities sometimes don't have the resources, so we try to find resources to bring programs in. We've done a lot of housing we actually just did a project for the homeless crisis. Well, actually we started about 4 years ago, not just now when it's been a little bit more known. We've been doing that for the past 4 years. We contracted out with a service that they work with a lot of local nonprofits, which is called PATH. We've already been servicing that community for the past 4 years, as mentioned, where we do wraparound services. It's not just a voucher, how a lot of the local cities have been doing it. It's not a voucher to get housing, but not necessarily tackle the needs that they have. I've also a business owner for 13 years. I owned a restaurant for about 13 years in the Huntington Park area. So I know the needs of businesses. I know that there's a lot of times Sacramento does put a lot of restrictions on businesses, and you end up closing businesses, losing jobs. A lot of the times what we need is support to our small businesses so we can be able to provide jobs locally. Jobs locally. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Josue Alvarado. I'm resident here in the city of Whittier and currently blessed with the opportunity of serving as its councilman, one of 5 that govern and partner with Santa Fe Springs with our partnership with Whittier PD. I've lived in this district for about 32 years, and the interesting part about this assembly district is that it's not an area I represent, it's not an area I work, it's my home. I grew up down the street in unincorporated South Whittier, learned how to swim back over here in the Santa Fe Springs pool, had my first date in that new theater AMC in Norwalk when it opened playing that movie Twister. So I remember. And again, once I got my degree from Rio Hondo College, got my, bachelor's from Cal State Fullerton, when I finally decided to lay roots, it was always a dream to live in the city of Whittier. And I've been accomplishing that dream, and I think it's even a blessing when I got to serve as its councilman and deal with a lot of the issues that impact our cities and our region. The reason I decided to run for assembly was because as a city councilman, I learned firsthand there's a lot of things we can do, and there's a lot of things we can't. Our homeless crisis that we're experiencing in the city of Whittier and in this region is limited by the resources that are available to us. When the state took away redevelopment, we lost the ability to build affordable housing, we lost the ability to have shelters and have that funding to buy land. We have nothing to barter with. The state's demanding that we build more affordable housing, but gives us no dollars to do so. When we get the governor to say we're allocating $1 billion, you divide that by 500,000, which it's cost me per unit to build, that's only 2,000 units throughout the entire state. What does that mean for the city of Whittier? Maybe a faucet. What does it mean for Santa Fe Springs? Maybe a door. There's not enough dollars to go around for what being demanded, and same thing goes for another priority is education. We're constantly being asked to pass bonds to increase our sales taxes when the state is currently running surpluses. It's been running a surplus since 2011, and they're projected to see surpluses in the billions. This is one of the reasons why I'm running for assembly. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Vanessa Tyson. Most of you don't know me, but that's okay. Maybe you will someday. And like Josue, I grew up in Whittier. I was actually born and raised in Whittier, and it was always my dream to come back as well. And because this is my home, this is a place that I care about, and and the community surrounding. While I didn't necessarily, interact with the police or the I guess joint uses of the police with Santa Fe Springs. I did use the Santa Fe Springs library growing up, and I loved the library. I'm a nerd. It's okay. I'm a first-generation college graduate. In 1998, I graduated from Princeton, and I won the Spirit of Princeton Award for all the community service that I did when I was an undergrad. And so I'm a first-generation college graduate. Now, I went on to become a professor. And now I'm a professor at a women's college, Scripps College in Claremont, California, where I teach courses like environmental policy, women in public policy. I also teach a course called Marginalized Communities. And one of the reasons why I'm running has to do with the fact that I want to advocate for marginalized communities, right? For communities who have been systematically kind of held out of the political process and shut out of decision-making dynamics that impact Sacramento. I'm a former Senate fellow, and I used to work as a committee consultant in Sacramento for the Senate Committee on Public Safety, which is the criminal counterpart to judiciary. And my job there was to analyze legislation, and there were many nights before hearings where I would actually spend the night in my office just working, pulling all-nighters. But one thing that I can tell you is that I know how to analyze legislation for the state of California. I know the different players and what we're up against. And I'm the type of person who will always analyze bills with an understanding that marginalized communities have to be protected. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the Chamber for putting on this event. My name is Jessica Martinez, and I am running for this Assembly District. Why am I running for this particular district office? I believe it's time for change. We're getting the same sort of song and dance from Sacramento, which means higher taxes, driving business dollars out of California, and continuing to ruin our education here in California. We once had the greatest educational system here in California, and now we're, I think, at 47 in the national ranking. I also believe, well, my three top priorities are safety, because we have this huge homelessness problem that was created by Sacramento. I'd like to see education reform. I want to see trade and technical training within our high schools, where kids, if they do not want to go to college to get a degree, they can go right into a profession, and we can partner up with local businesses, offer internships, and give them practical experience. And third, let's see, so thirdly, I should say, I want to encourage business and job growth in California. Without job growth in business, we have no dollars with which to have all of these wonderful projects that Sacramento wants to continue to put into practice. Excuse me. And while a lot of people promise certain things, they go to Sacramento and they vote lockstep with every other person up in Sacramento, no matter what their promises are here at the local level, pretending to have conservative values with regards to business and then voting differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Norwalk, Santa Fe Springs, and Whittier Chambers for putting this on this morning. And thank you, everybody who could be either at work or still in bed, nice and warm, for being here. My name is Doris Sandoval. I'm a current school board member for the Little Lake City School District right next door. My district covers Santa Fe Springs, Norwalk, and Downey. My husband and I have lived here since 2001. We've built our home here, we're raising our daughters here. I attended schools here. I went to Lakeside Middle School and Santa Fe High School. I'm currently very well involved in the community. I'm in the Norwalk Lions Club. I'm in the Soroptimist Club. I'm a founding member of Mujeres Extraordinarias, a co-chair of the Latina Empowerment Conference. I'm in a variety of nonprofits here in the community, so I know the community. I don't only belong to these clubs, but I really work for these clubs and I work for the community. I do it every day, all year long, not only during election time. I've been going out and meeting with different cities, different council members, different communities within the cities to see what it's like in their different communities, because I really want to give back to the community. I want to know what the needs are out there. I'm running for the state senate to be a leader to fight for better educational funding, quality schools, career technical education, and affordable college. In addition, I want to be able to work with fellow legislators regarding affordable housing and making sure that it's accessible to all who need it and to provide prompt access to mental health care providers. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to have each of the candidates answer one of the RCA-generated questions, and we'll go ahead and start with you. You pass it down that way. Question number 1. You've all touched on this, but I would like to address one particular area. Additional housing is of benefit to many members of our homeless community. But what would you do to assist the service-resistant?
So one of the things is that, yes, everybody talks about affordable housing, but what we're not talking about is the resources that we need to put into affordable housing and to the residents of the affordable housing. We need to give them access to mental health, to rehab centers if they're drug addicts. We need to give them resources to jobs. We need to provide jobs for the people. So affordable housing is not really affordable if people can't afford it. So we need to provide jobs and make sure that we keep them in good paying jobs so that we can keep them in the affordable housing and hopefully one day move out of affordable housing and into their own home. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Well, I'll tell you what, the question is about the service resistant. Now, the service resistant are people who, believe it or not, actually do not want help. They want to continue in their drug addiction or whatever other sort of alternate lifestyle that they have. And they do not choose to go into recovery. They do not choose to go into a mental health facility to get help. And believe me, those people do exist. I know a lot of people don't believe that they do, but they do. Basically, my number 1 priority would be to actually enforce the current law, to make homelessness uncomfortable and to encourage them to seek assistance. I've talked to police officers who basically told me that it's not uncomfortable enough for the homeless to want to seek help. We're making it too easy for them to remain on the streets. They go out and they plant themselves in front of a business institution, driving away your customers And then what they do is they go out and spend it on drugs. And they go out and they burglarize your home or your garage while you're not there, and they break into your car. What do? We enforce the laws, and what we also need to do is reform some of the legislation that's been put forth that's allowed more people to remain out on the street that shouldn't be on the street. We've done the 109, the 47, and the 57, which basically, it let more people out onto the streets that shouldn't be out in the streets yet, and allow them to encourage them to commit more crimes by, I saw the card, I'm gonna run out of time. By allowing anyone to steal from a business establishment as long as they don't steal more than $950 worth of your products. So, thank you.
All right, so part of this is about housing, part of this is about, service resistance, part of this is about mental health, and then part of this is about education, right? And so I want to make a case that this is all interconnected, even if we don't necessarily see the parallels and the connections right away. So part of my platform regarding education includes, the incentives to attract more social workers, right? And to provide education so that we have more social workers. I also would support reopening some of the state hospitals that used to be open back, I guess they shut around the early 80s, but we actually have one in our district, in Norwalk Metropolitan, that I think would be very, very useful in terms of dealing with the kind of comorbid issues that we have, right? And by comorbidity, when you're a practitioner and you're working with certain communities, right? You have mental health issues combined with substance abuse issues combined with housing issues and so on and so forth. And what you need to do is kind of approach this, it almost as triage, right? This isn't simply one issue about housing. This is about the health and the safety and the well-being of our communities, our families, our district, and society writ large. So what I'd like to see is more funding going to education so that we can have, but particularly focused on social work, perhaps through forgiveness of loans, doing this through the state of California. What I'd also like to see is a greater emphasis on mental health issues, right? Because in many cases, people with mental health issues will self-medicate if they don't have access to quality health care, or if they don't have any access to health care altogether. And then finally, I would like to see at least some state hospitals reopen, because I think those services are desperately needed.
Being an individual that has been given the opportunity to address the homeless issue from a city level, we've ran into a lot of things and we've offered a lot of services, and the unfortunate part is that there is a good amount of individuals that are service resistant. For those that don't know, in the city of Whittier we had this park, it's called Parnell Park. There was over 40 individuals experiencing homelessness. LAHSA, which is the Los Angeles County Housing group that helps us allocate resources to these people experiencing homelessness, were there for over 30 days offering all the services, mental health, housing, bed, you name it, they were offering it. Out of the 40 people that were there, only 4 accepted the help. Let me repeat that. Out of the 40 people that were experiencing homelessness, 4 accepted help. I actually believe that we, as a county here in the county of Los Angeles, are already paying taxes, and we're already funding this at levels that I've never seen before here at the state. And the reality is this, is that there's millions, if not even billions of dollars now being allocated to this, and the problem's not getting any better. The problem here is that we have a federal ruling that came from the Ninth Circuit Court that said that pretty much a homeless person can live in parks and in public places. But what I actually propose is that, yes, we as a city and even as a region have already adopted priorities to ask Sacramento, and I've actually gone up to Sacramento this last January to lobby to go ahead and reopen this state facility in Norwalk, to go ahead and allocate funding. But the third part that no one likes to talk about is the reforming of the Latterman-Purtis Short Act, which will allow, what people don't realize is that act If someone's suffering from mental health issues, you only have a 72-hour hold. Someone suffering from schizophrenia, someone suffering from drug addiction, 72 hours is not enough. I really do believe that if there is an issue with mental health, there need to be requirements to allow these people to seek the help they need. We do it when someone has a DUI and they're alcohol dependent. We need to do it for individuals also through a trained professional program to offer them the help and sometimes even require it where it's needed. Thank you.
So going back to what I have already been working on for a very long time, I go back to the wraparound services, which they do tackle all the angles, whether it's job training, medical assistance, and yes, in the 80s, there were certain laws that were changed that do not allow even for police officers to take anybody in, even if they see that there's a need, that they're schizophrenic, their hands are tied, and that's what I've seen in working with law enforcement, where they do say that even if they know that that person is dangerous to themselves or to others, they can't do anything. You know, their hands are tied, so they have asked to perhaps change the laws back to where they can retain these people, give them the medical assistance that they need, and you know, to make sure that they are taken care of and that they don't, you know, their fear is that the next day somebody, if they don't do anything, a parent or a neighbor is going to come and say, I told you that there was something wrong and you did nothing. So those are laws that they do want changed back. And then affordable housing. I mean, we're talk about building affordable housing, but who is it affordable to? Sometimes it's market value and they just lower it a little bit and that's considered affordable housing. So we have to ensure that even just the affordable housing has to be affordable to a lot of you know, our low-income communities. And that goes back to the businesses. We're restricting businesses, putting restrictions on them, and you know, they're laying people off, closing businesses, and these are the people that employ the people that are on the streets, our neighbors, our friends. They usually go locally. So just making sure that we do tackle it from all ends. Job training, if they lost their job, you know, did they use it to technology, train them on something new? These are the services that we already provide with a lot of organizations that work with nonprofits, that they give job training, housing. Some of them even do babysitting services to ensure that those people are able to go to their jobs. And realistically, just going back to allowing the laws to protect our residents as well by making sure that these people are given the mental health service, because they might just not even know that they have a need. Thank you.
You know, this issue is actually a multi-tier issue. Housing, public services, mental health services. It's a number of other issues that are, you know, that are related, you know, like unfunded mandates, etc. But the reality is that, you know, it's not an easy fix, and it won't be an easy fix. You have, you have legislation like SB 50 that didn't pass recently, right? Because, you know, the state Sacramento wanted to push legislation that had not been, you know, that had been talked about or addressed at the local community level. You have local communities that are fencing off their parks just so people, you know, living on the streets are not able to come and use those, which means that the rest of the community doesn't get to use those parks anymore. So this is more of a humanistic issue. What are we doing? How are we addressing the real needs that a lot of these folks, a lot of these families really get, you know, really don't have the services for? Medi-Cal, there's a majority of folks in the state that are under Medi-Cal. And even those that have private insurance don't have the services, because guess what? Insurance companies don't cover a lot of the services that are able to be used by these individuals who deal with mental health issues. So we need to take it one step at a time. What are we doing to go ahead and make sure that we provide the services needed to address the needs at home first? Let's go ahead and help families. Let's try to make them, you know, get people off the streets, get them into the services that they really need, address the housing issue, the lack of housing, not just affordable, but all sorts of housing. We want to make sure that we do this right in cooperation at the local level. No more unfunded mandates from Sacramento. Thank you.
Okay, can you hand the microphone to Sylvia? All right, question number 2, and you've touched on some of this in your responses right now. But number 2, how will you ensure public safety for our residents, children, and businesses with the decriminalization of the offenders in our courts?
Well, I have actually had personal experiences with that. With the change of laws, you know, a lot of the charges have become misdemeanors. I had a personal incident where something happened to me. I made a report, and the person was caught. So I said, perfect, you know, this person was caught. It turns out that that person I had a criminal history and had already been convicted and was actually on parole while they committed that crime against me. And I said, well, perfect, now they're gonna go back to prison, everything's gonna be taken care of. Well, you know, the deputy said, well, not so fast there. Whatever he did to you, now it's considered a misdemeanor. So as a misdemeanor, it's pretty much a slap in the hand, and he's gonna get out in a few months anyway, because it's a misdemeanor. So when we do these blanket laws that decriminalize all crimes and criminals, it only makes it easier for criminals to say, well, I can get away with this, so I'll just do this and I'll get away with it anyway. And it shouldn't be the case. I think all crimes have to be taken for what they are and not have a blanket law where everything becomes a misdemeanor. You know, maybe if it's petty theft, are they stealing bread? You know, that may be considered petty theft. But if you're already breaking into somebody's house and you steal their $600, $700, that's probably all they have in order to cover their rent. That should be considered a crime as well. So having these blanket laws that protect everybody, and basically what they're doing is that they're protecting criminals, but they're not protecting law-abiding citizens. So I think taking a look at all these laws and making sure that they don't become blanket laws, that we do touch on the specific issues, and for high crimes, make it that high crimes, and don't allow them to become misdemeanors.
After we lost a police officer in the city of Whittier, Keith Boyer, the city of Whittier decided to do something about it. Both its staff and specifically its council said enough was enough. And what we did is we actually worked with all of our neighboring cities. I have to thank Santa Fe Springs and Norwalk when they actually were one of the first few cities to support our efforts for the bill of Keep California Safe. The unfortunate part is that it passed the Assembly, it passed the Senate, which would have reformed all of these issues, right? And during the council meeting that we were discussing this, the biggest shock to me is that I had to have our chief of police come up to describe to me what mayhem was. I was like, mayhem? Oh, that just college students running around and making a mess or something? What's mayhem? He's all, no, sir, it's much worse. What do you mean? I can go up to you, cut off your ear. That is considered mayhem, and that's not considered a violent crime. I was shocked to figure this out, and I said, where's the petition? What can we do at the council? And I actually was blessed to go all the way to Sacramento and talk to League of California Cities, talk to senators, talk to assemblymen and women, and do my best to make sure that we rewrite these laws. And the fortunate part is that it passed the Senate, passed the Assembly, and it got vetoed by the governor. And that was the previous governor we had. The thing is, now we're in a new age and there's a new governor. There are people that are in Sacramento right now that could revive this at a heartbeat. We need to reapply that pressure and make sure that as communities, whether any of us win or not, that we all here understand that this is us that are suffering with these changes of laws. $900 as a threshold or $950 as a threshold is way too high. You steal a cell phone nowadays, it's $1,000, and that's where you have the only line of communication to communicate to your kids, to communicate for your job. It's different now. And I think our laws need to be reverted back to, go back to protecting Californians. Thank you.
So again, my name is Vanessa Tyson. I just don't want anybody to forget. Now, I used to work, as I mentioned before, I used to work for the Senate Committee on Public Safety. And we walk a fine line whenever we're talking about criminalization and penalties, right? Because there were so many efforts to increase penalties, particularly in the 1990s, where everybody was tough on crime, and that was the approach to handling everything. And the difficulty becomes, right, that when we focus on on prisons as only a means of deterrence as opposed to, a means for rehabilitation, right? Then we have the opportunity to try to change and intervene in cycles of violence, right? And that's what I want to see, which means that we need in Sacramento actually a paradigm shift, right? Where we focus on what does it mean to be a criminal, or what does it mean to have committed a crime, but also how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again, right? We don't want recidivism, and moreover, not just that we don't want people returning to prison, but we don't want them committing more crimes and hurting people, when that's not the goal here. So what I would offer is that, that we need to have, that there are many crimes that, yes, should be felonies and should be, should require time behind bars, but that we also need to think about what it means to be behind bars, right? And how we change that, our system so that it intervenes and really, like stops the cycle of violence that we've seen in our communities, and for decades, right? The crime is nothing new. But how we handle the crime and how we intervene in the cycles of violence and the cycles of criminality affects, how we become a better and a safer and a healthier society.
Well, how do we keep our communities safe? De Tocqueville once said, or he posed the question, why is America great? And basically the answer that he received is because its people were good. They were moral people. And this is one of the things that we have to return to in our schools. We have to begin, especially now with this generation, we have to begin to instill that morality within them, to know that it's wrong to steal. Turn them back to the age-old principles that will teach them not to do things that will hinder our society here. As far as AB 47, 57, and 109, which shifted populations from the prisons to the local jails, which basically began to make our local jails overcrowded. Thereby, we have to release more people out into the streets. We have to undo that. We also have to undo, as was earlier mentioned, lowering or making felonies into misdemeanors so that people are back out on the street without having to basically pay the price for what they've done to inflict harm on law-abiding citizens. Also, we have a legislature that continues to pass bills that are harmful to the safety of its citizens. They're following a political philosophy, and instead of thinking about the safety of the people here in our communities, we have to take local control over the harms that are being put upon our people here. We have to make sure that our laws are followed. Thank you.
Thank you. This also hits home. I was vandalized at the beginning of the year. I accidentally left my purse in the car overnight. I forgot about it. I've had so many things on my mind. And in the morning I woke up and my car had been vandalized. It had been broken into. My purse was stolen. All my credit cards were taken. My driver's license was taken. So it's you call law enforcement to come over and protect you. And the threshold was so low that my purse was only it wasn't over $900. So it wasn't really looked at as a big deal. But we have to look at those laws, and we have to make sure that the best interest of the citizens of California are taken into effect. Criminals, we all have rights to second chances, but some people they're lifelong criminals. This is what they do. And if we don't stop that by either reforming them inside jail when they're in jail, or, you know, getting them well-paid jobs or something, then they're gonna keep doing it. I mean, some of them do it because they're hungry, they need to eat, they need to, but a lot of them just do it because this is a hobby to them, they like to do it. We need to look at these people and really look and make sure that the citizens are taken care of first, and then, and look at these laws and make sure that these laws are overturned so that we can, so that they get penalized the way they're supposed to be penalized. Thanks.
Pass it down to people, please.
And, you know, would you mind repeating the question again?
Okay. How will you ensure public safety for our residents, children, and businesses with the decriminalization of the offenders in our courts?
Absolutely. You know, obviously, as I mentioned in my opening statements, opening remarks, you know, public safety is one of my top 3 priorities, you know, of our campaign. And part of the reason why I say that is because you know, a lot of these, you know, we have to remember one thing, folks. You know, there is no doubt that the criminal justice system has been harsher on people of color. There's no question about that. The research already shows. However, we have to be, you know, understanding. We also have to be, you know, we have to have a reality check about that. You know, what Sacramento sometimes does trickles down at the local levels, and this is all because Sacramento does not consult at the local level. Does not consult with local law enforcement, does not consult with local municipalities, and this is the reason why, you know, I like to say that I carry the strong support and endorsement of our local, you know, sheriff, you know, of LA, Alex Villanueva, because he understands my path to safer communities in our local 57th AD. We want to make sure that we're addressing that, you know, that we don't let anybody off the hook, that those that need to be behind, you know, behind bars are behind bars. And those that, you know, get affected because of a continuous cycle, you know, we have to look at different ways and different programs to address the different needs of every single community. It's not a perfect solution, but I do know one thing, that whatever's happening up in Sacramento is just not working for our local communities. Thank you.
Can you pass it down to Jessica, please? All right, question number 3. So this is your go shopping question.
Uh-oh.
With nearly $7 billion surplus for the 2021 year available in the general fund here in California, where would you spend that money or a portion of it if you could?
Number 1, I believe that we need to take care of our water system. I believe that that's one of the major issues that is confronting California. How we are conserving our water here in California is affecting businesses, it's affecting our food supply. Also, I believe we need to put money into our infrastructure, our bridges, our streets, our freeways, all of those things that affect commerce. And then lastly, I believe education is a vital role for the future, especially as far as our students are concerned. They need pathways to success, and we need to be able to provide them through our, just basically changing the way that we think about education. What are we going to do for these children? Are they going to have a way to make a living, or are they going to have to, no offense to McDonald's or Burger King, but are they going to have to work at those low-paying jobs for the rest of their lives because they don't have the skills to succeed? Or are we going to allow them a pathway through a trade, apprenticeships, things like that, getting valuable job experiences out there. So I'd like to see those types of changes being made in our educational system. Thank you.
Pass it to Vanessa, please.
So you said 7 billion surplus? Okay, there are plenty of ways in which I could spend this, but I think what I'd want to talk about is education and primarily, you know, like dealing with at-risk youth. So when I was a graduate student in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I started a program teaching self-esteem and self-awareness to girls in lockup. They were ages 12 to 17 and 3/4. And one of the things that I learned from them, right, like I was supposed to be teaching self-esteem and self-awareness, but really I learned so much more from them than they learned from me, kind of sad. But suffice it to say, one of the, programs that seemed to work for them and kept them off the streets was after-school programs, right? And particularly after-school programs that included not only tutoring, but recreational activities, including after-school sports, etc. Stuff that kept them happy, healthy, and made sure that they didn't fall through the cracks. So many of our students are falling through the cracks, and I want to see after-school programs put into effect. Similarly, what I want to make sure that we do is make sure that UCs and Cal State universities remain affordable for all families, right? I don't think that our schools, that our children at public schools should be going into tremendous debt trying to get an education. This is just a personal thing for me. I have plenty of educational debt, but when I was in college, I served on the committee on undergraduate admissions and financial aid, and we actually put into place, we presented a report to the Board of Trustees, and I was the only student on the committee that was actually a financial aid student, and I was a hardcore financial aid student. But suffice it to say, we were able to present to the board, and the board passed this proposal that we go debt-free. And so in 1999, the first class that came into Princeton University became debt-free, no more loans. And that's what I want for all of our students, right? I want our kids to have access to after-school programs, and I want our college students to graduate debt-free.
This is something I've been talking about for quite some time already. Time and time again, you see that, there's billions of dollars being hoarded by Sacramento, and yet local municipalities here are struggling to balance their balance sheets. There's a reason you can't get your roads fixed here locally, it's because there's not enough money. There's a reason that there's not enough affordable housing being built in your communities, it's because there's not enough money. All that money was taken away. So if I had the honor and the privilege of serving as your assemblyman, and I'm able to convince the top 3 priorities, I would focus on making sure that we allocate money to education for after-school programs and pre-K education. The second thing is, instead of just saying roads, bridges, I would like some of that money to go back to cities, because what's gonna work for Norwalk may not work for Santa Fe Springs. Santa Fe Springs got beautiful roads. I know that they recently did, I believe it was a few streets here. And for me, it's like, wow, these roads look really nice. But Whittier might be dealing with a homeless crisis that may not be so prevalent in Santa Fe Springs. So for me, instead of dictating to you where to spend your dollars as cities or as communities, I'd like to get some of that money back and have your councils and you lobby your councils as to what those priorities need to be. So for me, the top 3 areas where I would spend that money is education would be number 1. Returning some of that money locally would be number 2, so they can choose to spend more on law enforcement or on homeless, whatever they decide. And the third thing would be is to route dollars for mental health services, and specifically for drug addiction services. So when we do decide to open that state facility, that those individuals that are chemically dependent have no excuse as to why they can't get better. Thank you.
So this is where I do my pitch for everything that I want, well, the more important things that I want to take care of. Going back to the homelessness and housing crisis, make sure that we do provide more services, the wraparound services that I continue to mention, that it's not just a voucher and go on your way, but bringing education, medical assistance and everything, more nurses in order to be able to handle perhaps opening more clinics, reopening some of the hospitals, so they can be able to take care of the issues that are currently affecting the homeless. And then the other one is education, and it's not just bringing more funding, but making sure that it goes to the right places. When I was a child, we had nurses and we, counselors. So what we're forgetting is that a lot of times the issues start when elementary school. There's a lot of kids that are dealing with personal home issues, whether it's violence at home, domestic violence, any of those issues. And on top of that, they still have to go to learn. So bringing back counselors to ensure that those kids are taken care of at elementary school level, middle school level. A lot of times we don't start noticing that they have an issue, that students have an issue until they're already in high school, when it's already too late. They've already been formed a certain way. So that's another thing that I would want to tackle. And then there's more on the public safety level. providing more resources so we can hire more police officers and ensure that, you know, there is a growing crisis in crime, so we have to grow the numbers in officers being hired. And providing services to domestic violence. I mean, that's an issue that touched my family, continues to touch my family, because my sister's perpetrator ended up going after me this past year. So thankfully, we extended that restraining order, but then he didn't get any help. So making sure that resources are going to those individuals that are committing those crimes, so they don't continue to commit those crimes. Which I think it's also very important to support our local small businesses, ensure that they have the tools to expand and not restrict them from growing and providing more jobs to our communities locally.
I mentioned public safety, education, and healthcare are top priorities for me. But we also have to remember that, you know, today's event is chamber event. So what are we doing for the small business owner? What are we doing for the large businesses in our community? Well, I'll tell you what. I know that one of the biggest things that I do want to see is when redevelopment, funds were taken away from the local communities, we didn't see, big programs that incentivizes local municipalities to actually bring businesses back into their communities. Opportunity zones, they're okay. They work okay, but you know what? They're not the best, perfect solution. One of the biggest, I was a big fan of enterprise zones. We need to go ahead and make sure that we bring plans and programs that incentivize, that go ahead and give job credits back to the companies, back to the businesses, that go ahead and promote their businesses, that bring jobs locally. We're in a whole new era of green technology, folks. And we need to find solutions especially for a lot of these kids that are coming out of high school, and not necessarily everybody. I understand that not everybody's going to go to college. Not everyone wants to go to college, and that's perfectly fine. But we have to make sure that we give them the training, the job training needed to go ahead and make sure that Santa Fe Springs, Norwalk, Whittier, and every single community in California has the opportunity for small businesses to relocate back into our local communities and provide those much needed jobs. And guess what? That tax base that local municipalities are always looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so I did ask permission earlier, if I can step away. I actually had a meeting and I changed those meetings just so I can be able to come here and address you all today. So I did ask permission and she gave me permission and said, yeah, that it was perfectly fine. So I do just want to thank everybody for having me here and all the candidates and let's wish all of us good luck. Okay,
All right, be safe and good luck.
Thank you.
So, yes, there is $7 million in the surplus, and that's a lot of money. California has been saving up for a rainy day, and we're in a rainy day now. We need to put money back into education. Education is the foundation of everything, whether it's college or technical careers, but we need to put money back into education. We need to put money back into public safety. We talked earlier about public safety and about all the laws that are being broken and how to criminalize people, and we need to put money back into public safety and ensure that all our residents are taken care of and are safe. And another thing we need to do is put money back into our communities, into our small businesses, and having those businesses creating jobs for our residents. So I would put money back into education, public safety, and to local businesses so that they can create and help them create more jobs to give to our residents and help them become better citizens, better residents of our community, successful and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So education, public safety, and more jobs into our communities. Thank you. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Pass the microphone to Josue.
All right, so now we're going to have two questions that came from the audience. So the first one kind of goes along with the money issues. The question is, would you consider reinstating redevelopment agencies to help meet the current unfunded mandates of housing and business development?
That's a stern yes from me. As being a councilman for the city of Whittier, I firsthand have seen how redevelopment has really eliminated city's capacity to really help with the affordable housing issue and the homeless, even with the homeless crisis. Because without those dollars and those taxes that normally redevelopment would do, is that we were able to hold tax dollars here locally instead of sending them to the state for specially approved projects to redesign shopping areas, to build affordable housing. We were able to negotiate with developers and say, hey, we will contribute to these development, but we're asking for this many units to be affordable. Now the mandate still exists, but none of the money to fund it exists. And that's the biggest problem we have in California since redevelopment went away. And that's why we have this homeless crisis, because the cities have no skin in the game. And no developer's gonna come in and give you things for free. When they bought the land, they were paying for the labor, they're paying for the everything else. It's got to be a partnership, and I look forward to reestablishing that if I end up in Sacramento. Thank you.
I think on this one, I want to echo what Josue said, which is, yes, I would definitely consider reinstating redevelopment agencies. I don't see a problem with that. In fact, I think that, this would be beneficial in terms of, trying to develop as many public-private partnerships as possible. When we're thinking about, housing, when we're thinking about businesses, when we're thinking about, kind of a larger, economic community, we want all of the communities in Assembly District 57 to be able to thrive. So yes, the easy answer is just yes. Okay.
Yes, I would also encourage, if we could possibly get our hands on those dollars, absolutely, I do believe that would be important. We need to also make it profitable for contractors to be willing to actually do these types of projects. Unfortunately, I find it so often what is happening is that, are you familiar with the story of Moses and the Ten Commandments, and Pharaoh basically tells him, you have to make more bricks without any straw. I don't know, go back and read your Bible and you'll get the picture of the thing, but basically telling people to do the same amount without the necessary product to do it, or the means to do it. So we need to make a change up in Sacramento. We have a one-party state right now where their political philosophy is in full strength, and we're seeing the brunt of it here at the local level.
Yes, I agree. We need to bring back redevelopment money, give it back to the community, and let the community decide what's best for their community. Each city is different, so we need to make sure that each city knows what they're gonna do with their money. Redevelopment money needs to be used for creating more jobs and for public safety. There's just so much money that we need, that the local municipalities need. And I think that the members of the council should be able to know what their communities need and be able to allocate those funds back into the community.
So California did away with redevelopment funds back in 2012, many moons ago. California is in a much better shape now, and it doesn't mean that we'll never get into a recession again, like we did a number of years ago. But the reality is that while Sacramento keeps taking funds away, passing unfunded mandates, it's going to be a big problem until we address the need of what our municipalities really require and what they really need. So yes, I am in favor of bringing back redevelopment funds, but now we have other issues that we have to deal with, right? Housing issues. So local control is very important, and we need to go ahead and institute a program. If it's not redevelopment, we have to do another program, whatever it is, but we have to find ways to make sure that local municipalities are able to address the needs that they require in their own communities. Thank you.
Can you pass it to Vanessa, please?
Okay, our final question, and I think this one is definitely fitting. What makes the 57th Assembly District so unique? How does it differ from other districts?
Okay, So first off, you have these phenomenal communities, right? And I happen to grow up in one of them, being Whittier. But you have, kind of longstanding communities with complicated but wonderful histories. We're not new. Some communities that are popping up, here, there, everywhere, are much different than the communities that have been around for over 100 years. I see the diversity in our community as one of the greatest assets. I actually wrote a book, my first book was on multiracial coalitions in Congress. And the reason why I wrote it was because of my upbringing here in the district, where I saw the potential for people to work together. And I saw the potential for people to create change together. And it didn't have to be, that the uniqueness was the ability for all of us to come together and to help each other and to make, the entire area strong. And so I'm proud to be a Whittierite, I'm proud to be from this assembly district, et cetera.
Mr. Josue, please.
Many districts in the Assembly District, focus on their beaches, focus on their tourism, focus on their shopping. I have to say this Assembly District is blessed that the majority of it's our home. We do normally have to leave this Assembly District to, go ahead and find employment. And some of us have to spend many hours on the 105, on the 605, on the 60, whatever freeways, the 5, to go work, but we still come home. And I think what's very unique about this Assembly District is that this Assembly District has a little bit higher income in regards to net income. You have a good amount of educators that live in this Assembly District, but it's also very diverse. And the one thing I love about this district is that no other district really works together as much as this Assembly District does. You have partnerships with chambers, like we're experiencing today. You have partnerships with police departments that oversee multiple cities. You have partnerships at so many levels through Rotary, through the nonprofits, that's what we need to keep fostering. And I really do wish other Assembly Districts would do the same, because this Assembly District really does it right. Thank you.
Diversity. It's what makes the 57 a special place to live, work, and play for those of us, that live in here in the 57. As I mentioned, I'm a resident of La Habra Heights, and let me tell you, I love the fact that we have the avocado groves, the fact that we have the nature trails, right? I love the fact that I could go into Whittier with my wife, when we get that occasional night off from our 4 kids, right? But it's nice to see that we go into Santa Fe Springs, see the business developing. We go into Norwalk, where the county has a lot of our office buildings, the county civic, excuse me, a lot of the civic offices. But overall, we have north, over in the northern end of the district, we have the City of Industry as well. We have South El Monte. We have to remember that it's not just about Whittier, it's not just about Norwalk and Santa Fe Springs, it's about South El Monte, Hacienda Heights, and the diversity that it brings as part of the inclusionness that we are here in the 57. So there is so much that we're grateful for, and we just want to make sure that as your next assembly member, that I help to make it better for everybody that lives here. Thank you.
Down shore, please.
So what makes the 57th unique? Well, the 57th is the hub of LA, like Bruno said down there. We have all of our county offices here. We have the register recorder's office. If you need your birth certificate, you just walk down, it's a short ride over to Norwalk and pick it up. We have a lot of, like right now, all the chambers working, we have 3 chambers working together. We have the school districts that work together. All the Whittier area school districts here work together with each other. We're a community that we love to work with each other. We embrace everybody, and we embrace everybody, all the cultures in the community, and we know everybody. I mean, I know most of the people up here today. It's nice. It's nice to be up here with some of the colleagues that I know here, because I've worked with them in the past. I know who they are, and I know a lot of people here in the audience. This is what the 57th is. It's a community. It's neighbors working with everybody together. Thank you.
What do I love about the 57th Assembly District? Well, land is land, borders are borders, but within the 57th Assembly District are its people. And I believe our people here in our Assembly District, we do make up a unique community of businesses, educators, families, church leaders, churches, and service organizations that come together. We have our police departments, our fire departments, all committed to the safety of our communities and our people here. We've always had, I think, in all of our communities that are within the 57th Assembly District, a sense of community, a sense of neighborliness, looking out for our neighbors here. We have a sense of harmony. We have a sense of, oh, I have to stop, but I will say this. We have a great Assembly District with great people. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to have 1 minute for closing remarks. Dora?
Thank you. So I'm a daughter of immigrant parents and a wife of an immigrant. I know the struggles of the working class. As you have already heard earlier in my opening statement, I'm the only candidate up here today that has an invested interest in this community. My oldest daughter, who is now in college, went through the Teen Alliance program. My second daughter is a public safety cadet for the city of Norwalk, and my youngest daughter is now getting involved through me. My mom is also a senior center commissioner for the city of Norwalk. As you can see, my family is a family of giving. As a community leader and a longtime resident of this district, I know what the community needs. Sacramento needs a strong community leader, advocate, visionary who will work for you, not for special interests. It's time that this community decides who they want to represent them and not let Sacramento decide for them. That's why, on March 3rd, I humbly ask for your vote. Vote for Doris Sandoval for the Assembly District 57. Thank you.
I'm running for this Assembly District seat primarily because we need change up in Sacramento. My desire is to fight for the ordinary human being within our Assembly District. We need people who are willing to stand up for our communities, for our children, the people that are passing laws like 2943 having to do with the sex ed curriculum. We need to have people who are going to put a halt to these very liberal ideas that are being passed down into our communities that our families are rejecting, and we need to keep our businesses within our state so that we can pay for the things that we need. Thank you.
So as I said, my name is Vanessa Tyson. I was born and raised here in Whittier. I still live and vote here, and more importantly, my heart is here. And you know, my experience working in Sacramento, I think, is one of the assets that I want you all to consider. I spent years of my life in Sacramento analyzing legislation, and that was incredibly important to me. And that was before I went back to graduate school to study politics and policy and become a professor. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I always have been. I always will be. I was walking door to door and convincing my mother to vote for various people before I was old enough to vote, and she can tell you that I drove her nuts with that. I'm a first-generation college graduate, but now I'm a professor, and I can tell you that every chance that I've had, I've beaten the odds. And I know that some people think that the odds might be against me here. The odds might be against all of us, but nonetheless, we're here. We're showing up for this community because we believe in it, and we want everyone here to succeed.
Well said. I've lived in this community for over 32 years, and it wasn't just one community, it was multiple. Growing up in South Whittier, moving to the city of Whittier, going on dates in Norwalk, learning how to swim in Santa Fe Springs, enjoying some hot tea in Hacienda Heights at the Buddhist temple, just to get some quiet time. I'm a guy that has enjoyed this assembly district, has friends in La Mirada, La Habra, all around, because the boundary doesn't stop, how I associate with all our neighboring cities. And when I look at this assembly district, we have so many things going for ourselves, and yet we have so much that is holding us back because of the policies from Sacramento. I'm the only candidate that's here that has actual governmental experience from a city level. I have budgeted and have been responsible for budgets in the millions of dollars, and that's before I was in council. I can find dollars, I can look at budgets, I can analyze policy and understand the common sense approach. A lot of people can analyze it, but I understand the common sense of how it's applied to the cities. You want to send someone with experience and with knowledge of the common sense approach, send José Alvarado. Thank you.
As a cancer patient advocate, my job is to really focus on fighting for those that really don't have anything to really fight for. That's my job. That's what I do on a daily basis, federal, state, and local levels. My job is difficult, folks. I fight with everybody because I want to make sure that everybody has the best at the local level. Right now, California is voting on Prop 13. We want to make sure that Sacramento, that this proposition not only, gets the money to the schools, but the reality is that Sacramento keeps taking money away, when it does its grabs into education pockets. So we want to make sure that no more unfunded mandates from Sacramento for our local municipalities, because it is an issue. It is an ongoing problem. And if Prop 13 is going to be this way, then we need to really look at who we send to Sacramento. My name is Primo Castro, and I'm running for State Assembly here in the 57th. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to end with first thanking all the candidates. I wish all of you the best of luck. You did an awesome job this morning. Let's give them a round of applause. You're all welcome to stick around for a little while and mingle with the candidates and maybe ask them some questions that you didn't hear here this morning. Thank you.